Graham Bertrand, President here for about 2 years now. Thank you very much, Town Council, for calling this meeting. That's a very wise thing to do, I think. And I think the people here from the company have got the answer they need. Take away from them. That is that on every account, technical, economic, environmental, there's no case for having these blocks being built on Ramsgate Port. I came here this evening with not quite such an open mind as Craig. I came here more with a question along the lines that Jocelyn asked, and that is, how on earth did this ever get to this stage in the first place? Because it does rather smack a very weak local government. And I'm sorry if I'm making a point here which is slightly off-meeting, but I think Thanet District Council clearly have not performed well in the last decade. There are a number of eyesores around Thanet which it has been responsible for. There's no urgency, there's no sense of direction, there's no sense of vision, as someone very rightly pointed out over there. And it does beg a belief that an application like this should even get as far as it has. But I think it has because there's been a little bit of, so far, quiet manoeuvring, shall we say. I certainly never heard anything about a meeting in December. It wasn't very well publicised, and one suspects that people here are quite rightly suspicious of Thanet District Council. And the only hope we've got, gentlemen, of getting this development is if TDC continues to behave in the way it normally behaves, which is very badly indeed. But as you can see, there's quite a lot of people here this evening who are going to make sure that everything from here on in is very well scrutinised. And I call on our town council to put their, shall we say, small conflicts of interest to one side, because they're all to a man members of the Thanet District Council as well. And on this occasion, well, except for the one, sorry, I apologise. On this occasion, I call on the Town Council to represent the community of Ramsgate and to make sure this application gets no further. Thank you very much.
Councillor Campbell, committee, top table, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not very good at this, but I'm not going to get into the political because I just can't hack it. And all this infighting and everything else. So I think there's one or two people who made some points here quite recently that, if I may say, having been through this myself with a tarmac development, which was adjacent to my business and would have infringed it. I had a public meeting and we all went mad and they went away somewhere else. I'm sorry about this, Mike. And what I would suggest you do, thank you very much, it's a lovely lady here. What I suggest you do is that you go away and consider everything and go somewhere else. You don't have a chance.
Raise your hands if you have a question.
Thank you very much indeed. Yes, is that better? Yes. Yeah, okay, I'm looking at it. It's not giving me very nice replies. Anyway, all I can say is that this has been a most interesting meeting. I never thought I'd hear so much shouting, and I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I would like you to have controlled it a little bit better. Because nobody else had it. No, let's face it, if you hold a meeting, the chairman should be able to control it.
Just we Ramsgate! Just we Ramsgate!
Let me just say, anyway, Frank here and I both worked at Ramsgate Harbour, the Royal Harbour, and there is a distinction. The Royal Harbour is not the port of Ramsgate. And it was Ramsgate. I'm sorry, I worked on the council in the offices there. so we know what it was. My colleague here was the dredger master, and when he answered questions and made points, I think you would listen to him, because he knows what he was talking about. All I'm saying is, yes, well, all I want to say is that when it was a Royal Harbour and the Port Ramsgate, well, it's very annoying. I'm getting a bit confused now. Yes, okay, Mr. Chairman, I do apologise. Well, my question is to the gentleman there. I don't think you've answered our questions very well. It's an observation more than a question. And I just think that when we used to have the ferry coming off, that was why Port Ramsgate was built, so we could have ferries. Let's get back Ramsgate back to what it was, and you as councillors have got to see it will happen. Thank you.
Okay, this is just an observation to start with. I think everybody here is in total disagreement with the gentlemen that are sitting at the front. I want to know why, one of the questions, that Brian White, as previous Head of Environmental Services, has not spoken tonight. I want to know the reason why he has not spoken. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, I'm Brian White. 4 years ago, I did work for the council, and before that, I worked in West Cumbria, and before that time, I worked in York, and before that, I worked for the City of Leeds. In all of those councils, to a lesser extent, Fanny, I led on environmental matters for the local authorities, so I was a frequent visitor to the law courts over environmental transgressions, and I dealt personally with a number of licences, authorisations as they were called in those days, up in West Cumbria, not least sites like Sellafield and Balbrand Wilson's chemical works. So my role is quite simple in this particular application. Should it go to a planning application, I'll coordinate and produce the environmental statement that will go with it. And for me, the reason that I've said nothing this evening is that it's been a listening event. And I've got a long list of items that you've all raised that we should either address properly within the environmental statement, or we won't have a successful planning application, and therefore it's a very positive meeting as far as I'm personally concerned, and I think the rest of our party at the front is that a helpful answer to you?
So you've got ahead and we don't want it, yeah? And you're on list.
Yes, thank you very much. My hearing is still my hearing is still
Rebecca!
Yes, good evening. I just wanted to ask about whether you expect the environmental screening and Natural England to approve the application, if there is one, bearing in mind you have an SSI so close. And if that SSI is this area of special scientific interest, if that is an issue, bearing in mind it's several miles away, doesn't that suggest that there would be air pollution from this plant operation? And also, with the area, we have two of the largest offshore wind farms in the world, and a lot of that's because we have high winds. So again, back to the air pollution question. And the other question is, or point, is that I work with quite a lot of the people that work on the offshore wind farms, and quite often they can't get out because of weather, which would mean that we've got perhaps queues of this material sitting in the port, which again, being that it's in the port because it's high winds, is that going to have an impact as well?
I have no prejudices at all about how the environmental statement will work. We haven't started doing the research yet, but when we have the research, it will be published, and as I say, it will accompany the planning application, and it will probably be the critical item that influences whether the application is approved or not. we haven't got the information. The best time to start to doing all that is... Thank you, Chairman. There's no point in doing the environmental statement until we've heard people's views, and that was why this evening has been quite a useful session for us.
What do you think?
I don't draw conclusions without information. We're going to a process of research to put together an environmental statement that will cover all of the issues that you've raised. I don't know what the numbers will say, neither do you. But when we produce that work, it'll become public domain with the planning application. That's
So
the
what
process.
you're saying is that there was no point having this meeting?
Yeah.
It's
got to work. It's got our argument, so you can turn it around and make it buttering it up for the next time around. So we go, oh yeah, no, there's 47, 48 jobs now.
I think we're coming to the end of the question, so if you have a question and you want to ask, yeah, we all. I think there's a general mood, or a universal mood that's actually gone over to the potential applicants. The young lady there, if you'd like to ask a question, please.
Thank you. My name is Judith Adelsberg, and I'm one of Ramsgate Silver Surfers who walks along the seafront with my grandchildren. We love Ramsgate. I've been a Ramsgate resident before I come back to Ramsgate. Can I add one more thing to your environmental impact? We've talked about pollution, we've talked about recycling, but the visual impact as you're walking along our beautiful cliff top, looking down on our harbour, destroys me every time that it's unused. It was interesting when it was a working ferry port. It's interesting that the concrete mixers are down at the other end, although they're not particularly appealing. What I don't want to look at are piles of wood chippings or wood blocks curing piled up high on the ferry terminal next to our beautiful Undercliff beach.
Chap here with his hand in the air. No, just here. Look, the one with his hand in the air here.
Hello, Almheim, Ramsgate Society. No mention has been made of noise. We suffered the Horton running its generator all the time for 24 hours. No one actually did anything about stopping it. It was relief when it left. Now, if you've got a crushing plant, a crushing aggregate, and a wood chip plant, these are very noisy machines. You said it's only going to be running office hours. What a hell of a racket, I tell you. I've seen these in New Zealand. Thank you.
We're coming to the end of the questions, so I'll finish off with the star of the show, Councillor Driver.
Just a couple of factual points. I've been speaking with the Environment Agency today to talk about this application, and the chap I spoke to for about 3/4 of an hour was absolutely amazed by the fact that this development is going to be located less than 500 metres from a site of scientific interest, less than 500 metres from a European special area of conservation, and half a mile away from something that's called a Ramsar. It's nothing to do with Ramsgate, but it is a site of international scientific importance. And the guy at the Environment Agency kept on telling me he was neutral, but he told me he was absolutely gobsmacked by what was planned. And one thing he did tell me is that they will need an environmental permit from the Environment Agency to carry out those proposals that they've been talking about tonight. And he said that when they make an application for an environmental permit, not only will they have to have the impact assessment that Brian White has been talking about, but they will also have to be able to go out to public consultation. The Environment Agency will be doing a public consultation like Thanet Council on the planning application, and I think if this goes ahead, there will be thousands of objections to the Environment Agency and to Thanet Council, and this will be blown out of the water. And one final point I want to make. A lot of people have been talking about freedom of speech tonight, and I'm certainly a great supporter of freedom of speech. One of the important things about freedom of speech is that you listen to what the other person has got to say. I've got no confidence that this lot here have heard what a representative group of about 300 residents of Ramsgate have got to say, but yet they still say they're going to go away, they're going to work out plans, they're going to come back, they're going to push this through the system. Well, in my book, that's showing disrespect to the people of Thanet and to the people of Ramsgate, and it's a downright insult to local people to come here to say you're going to consult, not to listen, to go away and come back with the plan without any changes. They should be ashamed of themselves. And one final point. Getting there. One final point. The government last year conducted a special inquiry into civil servants who leave the employment of the government and then get employed by the private sector and come back and lobby the government. They call it, it's got a technical term, they call it the revolving door. And what the government has done with the revolving door, it's banning civil servants for 3 years from taking employment after leaving the government and then going to come back into the private sector to lobby the government. And what the government said, interestingly enough, was that the restrictions on the revolving door should apply to local government as well. So people like Brian White and people like Doug Brown cannot leave Thanet Council with their knowledge and their contacts and their expertise and then pimp it out onto the market in order to use their contacts internally to get favourable treatment. It might not be really good, it might not be against the law, and I'm not for one moment saying it's against the law or that they're breaking any laws, but what I am saying it's downright immoral and unethical.
Thank you all for attending. Thank you. Cheerio and good night. Drive safely home.